Welcome to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, a guiding resource dedicated to healthcare professionals on their journey to overcoming burnout. Spearheaded by Dr. Joe Braid, a certified professional coach and rehabilitation physician.
Hi, everyone. I am so delighted to welcome onto the podcast today, Lynda Manwaring. Welcome, Lynda, to the podcast.
Joe, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Lynda and I have known each other for about 7 years or so. We met through connections in Orange, and it's my pleasure to bring Lynda here to talk to us really frankly, openly, and inviting us and encouraging us to be more transparent and comfortable, I guess, around talking about mental health conditions. Lynda herself is someone who is very open about her mental health condition. You'll hear that through the interview that we've got today. As we're dropping this podcast episode around Are You OK Day, I think it's really apt to have somebody who is so conscious around all of this. So having lived through challenges within her home as she was growing up, and she's also got an ongoing journey, I guess, herself. And I learn so much from Lynda every single time that I connect with her. You might be aware that Lynda and I were going to host an amazing event here in Orange, which we still will at some point, called Music, Mental Health and Wellbeing. And in August, I released a trio of episodes, which was part of the content that I was going to share at that event. It didn't go ahead. That's okay. We've still got the minds together for releasing it another time. So without further ado, thank you again, Lynda, for being here. And I would love to kick off with the first question, if that's all good with you. So Lynda, you've moved from singing covers to writing deeply personal songs about your well-being journey. What is it about music that allows us to express things we might struggle to say in regular conversation?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I actually love this question because it's something that I have thought about quite a lot over the years. I think it's really interesting. I think conversation can be kind of even limiting at times because it has to pass through the filter of our minds before it becomes conversation. And so we might find ourselves thinking, oh, maybe I should say this, or maybe I shouldn't ask that. It's just not always honest, but the source of any form of creativity, and I know we're talking music today, but any form of creativity is absolutely born straight from the heart, which totally bypasses the keeper, and it's real. And that's what I love the most. And I think even when we do use words in music or songwriting, it's generally in some kind of broader and creative way, because it's simply coming through that unfiltered, authentic part of ourselves, because, the heart has no ego. Yeah. And I think that's a very special thing and an interesting thing to note.
Yes. Yeah. Great. I love that. Yeah. Really connecting there without...
to the source of us, isn't it? It goes to the source of us.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I think that's what connects with other people.
Yes, yeah.
One to another. Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah,
great. Thank you, Lynda. That's beautiful. And you took a long hiatus from live performance before planning to return with very personal content about Take two. You took a long hiatus from live performance before planning to return with very personal content about challenging times. What role did music play in your own healing process? And how did you find the courage to turn that private journey into something that you'd share publicly?
That long hiatus happened to be a time where I accrued a lot of creative energy, actually. I've never had any musical education, and I actually didn't even think I could write a song, to be honest. But there was a lot going on a personal level within my family, some big things. And on top of that, there was a pandemic. And on top of that, I happened to be just a bit of an empath. So there was a lot being felt by me at that time. And so toward the end that period, I began to write. And I think particularly if I'm struggling mentally or I'm feeling overwhelmed, music has been that doorway into feeling what I've needed to feel. And I think a lot of people might relate to that. And I've used music to change direction as well, to redirect my energies into more robust and positive spaces. Because, you know, what we listen to, when you think about this, what we listen to is actually a choice, and it does have an influence on how we feel. And the other part of the question, where did I find the courage to speak out? Well, I lost my very closest friend to her mental health challenges just 10 months ago. And this was a health path. We had a very similar path with regards to our mental health. So both of us finding our biggest challenges postnatally. I kind of went from there. So we held each other's hands through 30 years, and we laughed and we occasionally cried, and we raised many amazing children together. We had, I think, 9 between us. And we always marveled at this incredible life. And I guess for me now, speaking out with transparency is really just about encouraging others to do the same through whatever their own challenges might be, and using music as a healing medium. It was my way of honouring her and also honouring our friendship, and I know it's what she would want. You know, we always would say people need to talk about these things just more openly, so that we can lose any sense of there's still an element of shame and stigma and all this sort of stuff around what are really just health conditions. And we just need to, education is king. We need to learn more so that we can talk more, so we can understand more. And also in relation to my friend, you know, it's what we both stood for in raising our kids. Yeah, that authenticity. I think you can't teach your children authenticity if you don't show them the value of being real yourself. And so being open and honest, you're actually inviting them to grow to be open and honest too. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts you can give your children. Yeah. So I hope that answered your questions.
Yeah, so much richness in that. Thank you, Lynda. I couldn't agree more that we can have a range of conditions in our lives, and that includes, you know, cardiac, musculoskeletal, orthopedic, brain, mental health brain, other kinds of brain conditions, and just to drop down the barriers that are so invisible but somewhat still present. You're absolutely right, just to include this in the collective of what we do feel happy to talk about around our health and our healing processes. Yeah, thank you. No, really good to share that there. Thank you. As a songwriter, you capture those everyday moments and emotions that many of us experience but don't always acknowledge. Are You OK Day reminds us that life happens every day, not just on designated awareness days. And how can music, whether we're creating it or listening, become a daily tool for checking in with ourselves?
I love this question. Well, so even just on a physical level, we know we live in a vibrational world, and music is vibration, like everything else. We're vibrational beings, and so we really do feel it right in the cells of our body. And that's why sometimes I will use it as a tool for sure. And I mean, I listen to all kinds of things to nourish my soul. Everything from a soundtrack that might just be the rainforest with birds and rain. I love to cook in my kitchen some days and just crank the stereo in the lounge room. And I have, you know, the Amazon jungle, you know, going right through my house. it's nurturing. I just love it. But also I can go to something like the best of the 1920s. I know it's not a go-to on a lot of playlists, for other people, but, and it's not something we hear very often, but, I don't know about you, but whenever I picture those flappers, the girls dancing in the Charleston in that era, that celebrated post World War One era, where they were kicking up their heels, it's so upbeat. I can't help but feel elevated, and I notice whatever I listen to, I notice the shift and where it can take me. And I think that goes for everybody, but I would invite your listeners next time they put some music on to tune in to how it's affecting the way they feel, because it's a very key thing. Actually, you could apply that to any art form, couldn't you? How you feel when you're looking at a painting.
Yes.
Think about what you've got on your walls in your home, how it influences you.
Yeah.
And also on a deeper note, I have noticed over time, because I've definitely learned over the years with my challenges to be very self-aware. I notice if I start listening too much or becoming drawn to very introspective songs and sounds, it's a clue to me that I may be on a bit of a downhill slide, because my brain chemistry can throw me around sometimes. And so, maybe I am not heading into a nourishing headspace, and that I might need to pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
So there you go.
Yeah. Self-awareness being so key there, hey Lynda, and that real awareness of where a different song can take you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. Music is powerful.
The listeners are going to be lucky enough to hear some of your songs as we have interwoven them through the podcast today. And before we went live and started recording today, Lynda shared with me that in one of her songs, which is somewhat mantra-like and includes the word breathe a lot regularly, she wanted to have a vibration or a sound permeating through it, and chose the 220 hertz sound, which is actually related to our lungs and healing in our lungs, and how apt and connected is that the mantra is around breathe, and the frequency in the background is connected to our lungs. I never knew that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I love it. It's the creative side of music. It can be anything you want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Great. So the show we were going to do together, Music, Mental Health and Wellbeing, was going to weave together your covers of Alanis Morissette's music with your personal reflections on wellbeing. And there is something so powerful about how music helps us feel less alone in our struggles. How do you think sharing our stories through music creates space for others to open up about their own experiences?
Well, again, music, we're bypassing our thinking minds. We're bypassing our identified thoughts and our ego, for the most part. So, we're offering a less demanding and more open space for others to just be in, I think, and merge with even. And I think when songwriting or songwriters so deeply share their feelings and their stories lyrically, or even when they plant seeds of their own raw emotions in us musically without words, they kind of become like that. They kind of become like that old friend in pajamas hanging out on the couch beside us, girls' night in sort of stuff. They become relatable. And it's like they know us, or they know a part of us, and they invite us into their world, which can then feel like our world too, on a very base level. We were going to do some Alanis Morissette tunes in our show, and I've listened to her music for such a long time, and she's a very authentic writer. And I reckon if I bumped into her in Woolies supermarket, Off the back of just a few of her songs, I think I could waffle onto her so relatably for hours, by which time she'd be calling the police. But you know what I mean, because music opens us up. Mm-hmm. It really opens us up to the core of who we are on a very basic human level. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. You know, at our essence is always the same. Our stories are different. Our personalities are different. Our lives are different. You know, we all appear to be so different, but we're all exactly the same underneath. Actually, there's a song that I did write called, I should I mention the name of the album?
Go for it.
The album is called No Fortune Teller. And I wrote a song called Toward the Sun. And when I write music, it's kind of, I have a strange way of writing, it seems, because I don't sit down and think about what I'm going to write about. I tend to just, what flows out. And then I look back over it and I think, oh, you know, what was that about? And it seems to take some kind of shape in my mind. And that song Toward the Sun, to me, is very much about how we are all the same at our core. We all want the same things. We all love the same. We all fear the same. The details are different, but we're all dancing under the same sun. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So true. Love that. Absolutely love that. In how that can bring us together, and that can be a way to, again, drop down the barriers, try and decrease that aloneness, that there are so many similarities between us. And if we can embrace that and step forwards with that, then, you know, there can hopefully be more connections and more times that we pause and check in on someone, or we pause and find out a bit more about them, and probably then underneath feel and notice some of those similarities that we do both have, all in group together.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that this is where conversation, I really want to promote conversation just with a trusted friend, or just to be, when you are being authentic and you talk about the things that, whether they're the things that worry you or the things that light you up, the things that, you know, bring you the greatest joy, you'll usually find that person that you're speaking with will relate on some level. You know, we live in such an Instagrammable world, don't we, where it's all got to look this way and it's all got to be that way. Well, no, actually, underneath, it's all pretty relatable. And, I think conversation brings out the commonalities in all of us if we just open up. And it's very freeing too. Yeah. In that, when you have that sort of connection with another person.
Absolutely.
And as far as mental health goes, if you're someone who struggles and you can speak to someone, maybe they don't have the same struggles as you, but they're going to learn a lot by listening to you. And that's a good thing too. Yeah. Yeah. You know, we all learn from each other.
We so do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, Lynda. So moving from Sydney to Orange to raise your family, then finding your voice as a songwriter later in life, your journey shows that it's never too late to prioritise your well-being and your creative expression. What would you say to someone who's hesitating to reach out for support or pursue something that might help their mental health, thinking either it's too late or that they should handle it alone?
Okay, well, there's quite a bit I could say around all this. There's creatively first. Never too old. I think it's like wisdom. I think the older we get, the more stores we have to work with. So the very notion that, you know, this culture has, that we could ever be too old to create, seems almost ridiculous to me. And people think they're not creative, but, you know, we create all the time when you think about it. It's not just about being an artist. You know, we create space for conversations. We create conversations. We create a meal. We create a holiday plan. We create shopping list. It's not very exciting, but we have to create it. Getting dressed in the morning. We are born creators. And as for mental health challenges, should someone go it alone? This is actually a close to the bone question for me, and it's a good one because I've done that in the past. But you know what? I wasn't Atlas in a previous life, and I don't think most people were. And it can be exhausting going it alone, and it can be isolating, which is not good. So look, I'm here to ask, encourage, invite, plead for anyone listening to share their experiences. It's a way forward for all of us. We will all need to offer a handout, and we'll all need to raise a hand up at some point in our lives. We just will. It's not weakness, it's strength. And I guarantee whatever someone listening may be harbouring within themselves, worried about sharing, whatever it might be, you are not the only one on this earth to have experienced it. There's no way, no matter what it is. So cut yourself some slack. And look, on that, you mentioned my childhood earlier. I'd love to share just this thought. I did grow up with a very unwell father, and my mother knew and loved deeply the man that he was before his illness hit him. And so we did never know that version of him. So she taught us from that experience about who he really was beneath his illness. And the big lesson was that our illnesses, even our experiences are something we need to walk with and something we need to grow from, rather than feeling totally identified with them, which is very easy to do. So she was a very wise woman, my mum. And look, that's one practice that I really put into play as often as I can. And on a bad day, I really have to remind myself, hang on a minute, you're not your illness. This is something you're living with. And so do you want to hear a few practices that I have then, or
yes,
just maybe?
Please, yeah.
I mean, honestly, Jo, you wouldn't have enough birthdays for me to get to the end of the list of all the practices that I've developed. I could write the book. But here are, I've written down a few of my go-tos. I try and hold my own hand on a bad day. For anyone listening, we all have bad days. It doesn't have to be whether you don't have to have a mental health condition. You might be unwell with something else, whatever it is, it's no one's fault. It's just a bad day. I meditate every day. That's something I've cultivated over the years, and that's pretty non-negotiable. It's got to be a really rough day for me not to carve out at least even just 10 minutes to go inward. And if I am not well enough mentally to do something that I had planned to do, I'll cancel it. I'll postpone it. It took me years to be at peace with that one. That was really hard. But masking, which is something that we all have to do to a degree, don't we? There are times where you've got to show up, front up. You might not feel like it. But it takes a lot of energy, and I think you need to choose your battles wisely. Whatever your health condition is, you've got to look after yourself. I value authenticity and authentic relationships, of course. And nutrition, nature, sleep, laughter. Oh, my God. So important. And I accept that life is hard, because it is, right? It's just hard. It's great. It's incredible, but it's hard. So I accept that my best will vary from day to day, as I think we all have to accept that, don't we? Some days are better than others. That's okay. And here's an important one. I remind myself that my thoughts mostly our thoughts are our mental conditioning. Mostly our thoughts, I think, are derived from the things that we've become identified with over time, our life experiences, what we were told by the children by our parents when we were children or by teachers but we don't have to believe everything we think. We really don't. But I do pay attention to what I am thinking about, because there's something else I've learned over time, and this is guaranteed: you will always get more of what you put your attention on. So if you're putting your attention on the negative things, I'm not saying don't deal with things, but if you find yourself in a loop of rumination, you will get more things to ruminate about. On the other hand, and this is one of my favourite practices, if you put your attention on, for example, things that you can be grateful for, the door, floods, the door opens, so that's a practice every day of mine. The more you practice gratitude, the more you will find you have to be grateful for, and that will lift you for sure. And then there's that thing called kindness. They're so intertwined. I know, Jo, this is a favourite topic of yours too. We've talked about this before, favourite little random acts of kindness, and I put that in place actually as a daily practice for myself a while back, off the back of a little act of kindness that someone had done for me. And I thought it moved me so much, and I felt so buzzed by it. I thought, wow, what if we all were to do one thing a day, one small thing a day? The ripple effects are enormous. And I really believe kindness makes the world go round, or at least it would if everyone on the planet would just jump on board. We're hardwired to be kind. It's good for the village. And you and I have talked about oxytocin, which flows from the brain. The studies that I've read, there's a wonderful book actually, if anyone would like to look it up. It's called The 5 Side Effects of Kindness, written by Dr. David Hamilton. There's lots of studies on kindness, but it's just one that I'd read, and he writes in a very delightful, uplifting, beautiful manner too. So, but he says that the studies show that whether we give, receive, witness, or even recall an act of kindness, we have that oxytocin release. And how incredible is that? We are hardwired for it. Yeah. So actually, I don't know if you've got time. I've got a little kindness story that I'd love to tell you, but do you have time?
Of course. Go, Lynda. Yeah.
Okay, so I love this story because it happened probably, I don't know, maybe even 25 years ago, and I still think about it, and it lifts my spirits every time I do. So one evening I was coming from a Pilates class or some exercise class anyway, and I swung by Woolies. Sounds like I'm hanging out in Woolies all the time. I'm not. But anyway, I swung by the supermarket and just to get a couple of things, and I noticed when I walked in the distance, there was a mum and her young child in a school uniform. And I just noticed there seemed to be something going on between them, and the little girl was sort of going backwards and forwards to mum, and she had something in her hand. Anyway, I didn't pay too much attention. I turned my attention back to what I was buying. So I'm collecting those couple of last-minute things, and then all of a sudden I get this little tap on the shoulder. And I turn around, and it's the little girl. And she looked up at me and handed me this little, rumpled-looking piece of sweaty paper with her handwriting on it. She looked like she might have been, 7 or maybe 8. And she didn't say anything. She handed me this little piece of paper, and I looked at it, and it said in her handwriting, "I really like your shoes." I know, right? Anyway, I looked up behind her, and there's Mum way off in the distance watching. And I can't remember exactly what I said to her. It would have been something, something along the lines of, "Thank you, sweetheart. What a beautiful thing to do. That's so kind." And she turned on her heels and, beetled off. She looked very shy. And I took that piece of paper. This is where the story really lights up for me. I took the piece of paper and I went through the checkout and I got in my car and I drove home, and I noted that all of a sudden any thought I had previously in my mind about how the day mightn't have gone right or I should have, whatever, was gone. And all I could think about was how lit I was from this beautiful little act of kindness and what that whole little scene was about. So when I got home, I unpacked my groceries. I didn't bin that note. I stuck it in the middle of my fridge where everyone could see it. And you know what? It stayed there for years. And every time someone came to the house, especially if it was a friend or what, they go to the house and our house is very, make yourself at home. Go grab the milk. They go to the fridge. They go to open the drawer and they'd read it and they'd say, what? What's this? I really like your shoes. What's that about? And so I tell them. Yeah. And so we would have this conversation that you and I are having again, and they would feel so lit from that. Yeah. As would I. And, it stayed there forever. I think it fell to the floor and the mice carried it off probably in the winter one day. But the other thing, just lastly I'll say on that story is I often think about that little girl and I often wonder how much she remembers from, Year 3 in primary school. Probably not a great deal. I don't remember a great deal academically, but I bet that she's never forgotten the day that her mother taught her to be kind. Oh, always makes me feel emotional. I love it. Yeah. And that is what makes the world go round. So be kind, listen to each other, talk to each other, be open and real, and life is good. Yeah.
Lynda, thank you. There was so much richness in all of that you shared there that I think we'll close out here actually and just end on that beautiful note of what you've shared there. I do think you've got a lot of wisdom and elements that are relatable to more what I talk about around burnout recovery and so forth. So many of those points of self-care practices that you shared had a lot of layers of similarity, and I could expand on that another time. But I'd love us to finish on that beautiful story and recall and noticing the oxytocin almost rise in you and then feeling it myself as well as I heard that story there is exactly how easy it can be in conversation for us to share a moment together. If this episode has brought anything up for you, I'll have some numbers in the show notes that you're welcome to reference if you feel like you need any support from here. That will be public numbers that are available for you. But closing out this podcast episode, it is the first one I have ever done on the kitchen table.
I'm right at home.
Yeah, we've just recorded this together, pretty ad lib, and lots of smiles and good times together. And Lynda, I'm thanking you from my heart for coming onto the podcast today. It's been absolutely beautiful to hear your super well thought out words and your journeys that you shared with us. So thanks again, Lynda. Here's the mic to sign off.
Oh, Jo, thanks so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and I so appreciate you giving me the opportunity to encourage other people to open up and be authentic with each other and with themselves. So, thank you so much.
So welcome, Lynda. Catch all the rest of you later. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. Schedule a 60-minute power hour with me and leave with relief, decisions made, and clear next steps. Or send me an email for a speaking inquiry. All information is available at drjobraid.com with links in the show notes.